Something is wrong with the light. Not darkness, not blinding brightness. Something in between. A dim amber glow that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, like the world itself is quietly on fire. You look for the sun. You cannot find it. The sky is not a sky. It is a ceiling, thick, featureless. The color of a bruise pressing down without a single gap. Below you, dark volcanic rock stretches to a horizon that feels closer than it should. No water, no soil, no sound, no movement. Your instruments are reading numbers you have never seen outside of a simulation. The temperature outside is 865 degrees Fahrenheit. The pressure is equivalent to standing nearly 2,900 feet beneath the ocean's surface, not in a vessel, just standing there. This is Venus. And from the right distance on a clear night, it looks beautiful, brilliant, perfectly calm, like nothing went wrong here at all. From orbit, Venus is stunning, smooth, brilliant white. It reflects more sunlight than any other planet, which is why it outshines everything in your night sky except the moon. You look at it and your brain says, calm, safe, familiar. Your brain is wrong. From orbit, it looks like a cloud. From the surface, it looks like the inside of a furnace. But before you reach the surface, you have to pass through what is above it. And those clouds, the ones catching the sunlight, the ones making Venus glow like a lantern, are not water vapor. They are not ice crystals. They are concentrated sulfuric acid, not a trace amount, not a diluted solution. The industrial grade that dissolves metal and breaks down organic tissue on contact without requiring long exposure to begin the process. You are currently falling through them at 186.41 miles per hour. A permanent hurricane that circles the entire planet in just 4 Earth days. No landmass to interrupt it. No season to weaken it. It has been running continuously for hundreds of millions of years without pause. The strongest hurricane ever recorded on Earth barely touched that wind speed and lasted days before exhausting itself. Venus does not exhaust itself. But here is the detail that catches most people off guard. Up here, between 31 and 43.5 miles above the surface, the temperature is almost Earth-like. 32 to 158 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on altitude. Pressure similar to sea level on Earth. Some scientists have genuinely proposed the cloud layer of Venus as a candidate for human habitation. Floating stations suspended in the atmosphere above the nightmare below. On paper, it almost makes sense until you go lower, because the moment you descend past the cloud deck, survival stops being a design problem and becomes a time limit. And the clock, once started, does not run in your favor. Below 18.64 miles, the winds stop almost completely. The 186.41 miles per hour gales above simply disappear. You drop into something that feels like stillness. No sound, no movement, no visual reference for the passage of time. Nothing except your instruments, which are already reading numbers that do not make sense. The atmosphere of Venus at this altitude is 96.5% carbon dioxide. Not a concerning percentage, not a climate trend. The entire sky, compressed and heated and stacked for kilometers above you like a column of invisible weight. At the surface, atmospheric pressure reaches 92 times what you experience on Earth. To translate that into something physical, standing on Venus is the equivalent of being nearly 0.621 miles underwater. Not in a vessel, not in a suit, just standing there, exposed, with that weight distributed across every square centimeter of your body. Your lungs would not expand, not because of muscular failure, but because the pressure differential between outside and inside your chest would be physically impossible to overcome unaided. The air would not move. But you would not feel your lungs failing. You would already be losing consciousness from CO2 saturation before the pressure became the relevant problem. The engineering response seems logical. Build a suit rated for 90 atmospheres. Solve the pressure mechanically. Design around the numbers. But a suit capable of that pressure is essentially a rigid metal shell. You cannot walk naturally. You cannot manipulate objects with any precision. Your dexterity drops to near zero. And that suit now needs to manage the next layer of the problem, which the suit itself makes worse. Every system you add to survive the pressure generates heat, and on Venus, generated heat has nowhere to go. You are not solving the problem, you are rescheduling it. The surface temperature of Venus is 869 degrees Fahrenheit right now, on the day side, on the night side, at the poles, at the equator. The temperature does not vary by more than a few degrees across the entire planet at any time. Day and night, identical. The surface of Venus never cools because the planet never truly experiences night in any thermally meaningful sense. The atmosphere is so thick, so saturated with carbon dioxide that heat absorbed during the day cannot escape. It circulates, it accumulates, and it reaches an equilibrium not at a livable temperature, but at one hot enough to melt lead, hot enough to liquefy zinc in the low-lying basins. This is the runaway greenhouse effect. Not as a projection, not as a model, but as a completed event. It already happened here. The carbon dioxide absorbs outgoing infrared radiation, traps it, and the feedback loop runs until it has nowhere left to go. The Soviet Union understood this would be extreme. Between 1970 and 1985, they sent 10 landers to the surface of Venus as part of the Venera program. These were not delicate scientific instruments. They were pressure vessels machined like artillery shells, wrapped in titanium, pre-chilled before entry to buy extra minutes against the heat. They landed, they transmitted, they sent back images of orange rock and cracked, fractured soil. And then, one by one, they went silent. Venera 13 holds the record. 127 minutes on the surface before total systems failure. 127 minutes. The electronics overheated. The seals degraded under the pressure and temperature cycling. The cameras fogged and darkened. The transmitters cut out mid-signal. Everything we have ever sent to Venus has failed. Not eventually, predictably. On a timeline, the environment sets, not the engineers. Their remains are still there. On the surface of Venus right now, sitting in the dim orange half-light, slowly being absorbed back into the environment that destroyed them. Melting monuments to the only visits this planet has ever received from anywhere else. No mission has returned since. Not because of lack of interest, because the engineering problem is not a gap in material science waiting to be filled. It is structural. Every solution to the heat problem requires energy. Energy generates heat. And on Venus, additional heat simply means the clock runs faster. There is no sky movement on the surface, no weather shift, no change in light between morning and evening, no sound, no reference point for time passing at all, except your systems degrading in sequence, one component after another. On a schedule the planet decided long before you arrived. You do not experience Venus. You are processed by it. Here is something that should not be possible. Venus has almost no impact craters. The Moon kept every crater it ever received because it has no atmosphere and no tectonic activity. Nothing erases them. The lunar surface is a 4 billion year record of every object that has ever struck it. Venus has an atmosphere. Venus is geologically active. Some crater erosion is expected. But the craters on Venus are not worn down. They are absent. The surface is estimated to be between 300 and 600 million years old, which is geologically young. Something happened within the last billion years that completely resurfaced the entire planet. The leading theory is a global volcanic catastrophe. Venus has no plate tectonics. On Earth, the movement of tectonic plates continuously bleeds internal heat at boundaries, preventing pressure from accumulating beyond a certain point. Venus has no such release mechanism. Instead, heat built up in the interior over hundreds of millions of years until it crossed a threshold. And then, in what geologists believe was a catastrophic global volcanic event, the entire surface erupted. Lava flooded every basin. Every prior surface feature was covered and replaced. The planet erased itself. Every crater is gone. Every record of the surface before gone. Whatever existed in the first 3 billion years of Venus's history, whatever chemistry was developing, whatever the surface looked like when it still had water, is buried under a kilometer of basalt. And here is what that means beyond the geology. Whatever went wrong on Venus happened once, completely, leaving no evidence of the transition. If the same process were built somewhere else, there would be no visible warning in the surface record until after the threshold was already crossed. You would look at the planet from a distance. You would see a smooth, bright surface. You would have no indication of what was accumulating beneath it. You would see something beautiful. And by the time that changed, the point of no return would already be behind you. The current scientific consensus, based on climate modeling, atmospheric chemistry, and isotope analysis, is that Venus almost certainly had liquid water on its surface for billions of years. Not briefly, not in trace amounts, oceans, real standing oceans, possibly stable for 2 to 3 billion years. The evidence is preserved in the atmosphere itself. The ratio of deuterium to normal hydrogen on Venus is dramatically elevated compared to Earth, a signature left behind when water is lost to space over geological time. When water evaporates and the hydrogen escapes into the upper atmosphere, the lighter hydrogen isotope escapes first. The heavier deuterium remains behind. The ratio that exists now tells you how much water was once present and approximately how long the loss took. Water was there, then it evaporated. The hydrogen escaped into space. The oxygen bonded into rock and soil. And the oceans ceased to exist. What triggered the initial shift is still debated among planetary scientists. Perhaps the sun gradually brightened over billions of years and Venus crossed an insulation threshold its atmosphere could not handle. Perhaps volcanic activity released enough carbon dioxide to tip the greenhouse balance. Perhaps some combination of factors compounded at the wrong time. But here is what science does not debate. Once the process began, no mechanism existed to reverse it. As surface water evaporated, it added water vapor to the atmosphere. Water vapor is itself a greenhouse gas. More greenhouse gases trapped more heat. More heat accelerated more evaporation. The feedback loop had no natural ceiling. It ran until the oceans were gone. Then, the atmospheric water vapor was lost to space through photodissociation, and the planet was left with nothing but carbon dioxide, sulfur compounds, and 869 degrees Fahrenheit of retained heat. A planet that may have had stable oceans for longer than Earth has had complex life is now the hottest surface in the solar system. The transition from one state to the other took tens to hundreds of millions of years. It was not a sudden event. It was a gradual compounding, each step making the next step more certain, until the process was so far advanced that reversal was physically impossible. And the moment of crossing, that specific point where the outcome became determined, is buried so deeply under destroyed and overwritten geology that we may never precisely locate it. We know the before from chemistry. We can see the after from orbit. The crossing itself is gone. So what is the real problem with Venus? Not the acid, not the pressure, not even the heat. The real problem is what Venus represents when you follow it all the way back to the beginning. Two planets, identical starting conditions, same size, same gravity, same building materials, same star, same approximate formation window. One developed plate tectonics, a mechanism that regulates carbon dioxide, cycles minerals through the crust, and keeps surface temperature within a range where water stays liquid. The other did not develop that mechanism, or lost it, or never reached the threshold where it could sustain itself. That difference is not dramatic. It is not visible from space. It is a structural detail buried in the interior of a planet, operating silently over billions of years, but compounded across enough time. That single difference produced everything you have seen in this video. The acid clouds, the 92 atmosphere pressure, the 869-degree surface that has not cooled in hundreds of millions of years. The geology that erased its own past, the oceans that will never return. There was no alarm, no announcement, no phase where the system was clearly headed toward catastrophe, with enough time remaining to correct it. It crossed a line. The feedback loop engaged. And then the outcome was decided before any evidence of the problem was legible from the outside. The planet still shines. From Earth to night, Venus will appear in the western sky just after sunset, brighter than anything around it, steady and brilliant, and completely unchanged in appearance from how it looked to every human who ever looked up at it before you. But underneath that surface, the most Earth-like planet ever found has been completely and irreversibly destroyed. Destroyed so thoroughly and for so long that the original surface is geologically inaccessible. The evidence of what it once was exists only in trace chemical signatures in an atmosphere that is itself a byproduct of the catastrophe. We are looking at the aftermath of something we cannot fully reconstruct. We know the line exists. We know that once something crosses it, nothing that comes after matters. The only difference between Earth and Venus is that one of them has not crossed that line yet.